It was supposed to be just another hearing in Congress, until AOC leaned into her mic and said, "Sit down, girl." What happened next? No one saw coming. Pam Bondi didn't yell. She didn't walk out. Instead, her calm, savage response left the entire room stunned, and America talking. This clash wasn't just political, it was personal. In a fiery moment that lit up every corner of social media, Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC, unleashed a comment so sharp, so unexpected, that it stopped an entire congressional hearing in its tracks. Sitting across the table from her was Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of Florida and a well-known conservative legal force. The hearing was already tense. The topic? Media bias, misinformation, and political weaponization. The room was packed, the cameras were rolling, and every word spoken was being live-tweeted by reporters and political junkies. Everyone expected a heated debate. No one expected what came next. As Bondi calmly made her argument, one that challenged the mainstream media's selective outrage and took aim at how conservatives were often painted unfairly, OC began to visibly fidget. She rolled her eyes. She whispered to her aides. And then, in a moment that has now been played millions of times online, she leaned into her microphone and snapped, "Sit down, girl." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. The hearing room fell silent. Even in a political landscape where heated exchanges are the norm, this one felt different. There was something about the tone, dismissive, sharp, laced with personal condescension, that hit a nerve across the political spectrum. And within seconds, the internet blew up. Twitter feeds exploded. Clips hit YouTube and TikTok. News alerts buzzed across phones. Hashtags like #SitDownGirl and #PamBondi began trending almost instantly. But what happened next wasn't a meltdown or a screaming match. It was something far more powerful, because Pam Bondi didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look shaken. Instead, she smiled. She straightened her posture, looked AOC directly in the eyes, and calmly replied, "Congresswoman, I'm not your girl. I'm a former attorney general, a career prosecutor, and a woman who's earned her place at this table just like you have. If you're intimidated by opposing views, maybe you're in the wrong room." Boom. The silence deepened, and then a slow wave of murmurs, gasps, and even scattered applause from the gallery behind her. In just a few sentences, Bondi had taken control of the moment, not with outrage, but with poise and precision. Her response became a defining clip, the kind of viral moment political strategists dream about. In an age of screaming heads and online takedowns, Bondi's strength was in her restraint. She didn't stoop to the level of insult. She didn't lash out. She reclaimed her dignity, and in doing so, struck a chord with millions of viewers, many of whom said they didn't even follow politics but couldn't stop rewatching that exchange. Within hours, the moment had become national news. Fox News aired the clip on repeat. CNN played it alongside heated panel discussions. Influencers and commentators on both the left and right weighed in, drawing battle lines in the digital sand. Supporters of AOC said she was simply fighting fire with fire, that the comment was meant to be snarky, not serious. They argued that male politicians have said far worse without consequences. But critics across the board, and not just conservatives, called the remark rude, belittling, and beneath the office of a U.S. Congresswoman. But perhaps what surprised most people was the reaction from women across the country. From business leaders to suburban moms, from college students to media hosts, many said Bondi's quiet clapback felt like a moment of empowerment. Why? Because nearly every woman has been in a room where they were talked down to, called sweetheart, darling, or girl in ways that weren't kind, weren't respectful, and definitely weren't professional. Pam Bondi's response, they said, was a reminder that power doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it simply speaks with calm certainty. Later that night, Bondi appeared briefly on a primetime news show. She didn't go on a victory tour. She didn't drag AOC through the mud. She said one simple thing. "I believe in strong debate. I've had it my whole career. But there's a line between challenge and condescension. And when that line's crossed, I'll always stand my ground, respectfully." The moment only added to the mystique. Bondi had walked into a hostile room, been hit with a petty insult, and walked out with a wave of newfound respect, even from those who disagreed with her politics. And AOC? For once, she said nothing. No tweets, no clarifications, no doubling down, just silence. A rare moment from a politician known for never backing down online. In the days that followed, the clip continued to go viral. Analysts called it a turning point in the hearing. Commentators dubbed it the moment AOC met her match. But perhaps the most powerful commentary came from everyday Americans who flooded social media with one simple message. That's how you handle disrespect. Classy, calm, unshaken. In a world of constant chaos, the Bondi moment reminded us that real strength doesn't always come from raising your voice. It comes from knowing your worth and refusing to be belittled. And that, more than anything, is why this moment became more than political theater. It became a cultural flashpoint that America won't soon forget. It all started on what was supposed to be just another day on Capitol Hill, a congressional hearing scheduled to discuss political bias, media manipulation, and the growing influence of misinformation in America. The room was filled with lawmakers, analysts, legal experts, and journalists. Tension was in the air, but no one could predict the firestorm that was about to unfold. At the center of it all was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the progressive firebrand from New York known nationwide simply as AOC. Young, bold, and unapologetically direct, AOC has become a symbol of the political left, revered by her supporters for challenging the establishment and speaking truth to power. And during this hearing, she was in full form. With sharp questions and a relentless tone, she grilled conservative witnesses and questioned the legitimacy of right-wing media narratives. To her fans, she was doing exactly what they elected her to do: fight the system. On the opposite side of the political spectrum sat Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of Florida and a seasoned prosecutor with a reputation for staying calm under pressure. Bondi had been invited to speak as a witness, offering insight into what she described as media double standards and the legal consequences of political bias. A strong ally of former President Trump and a familiar face to conservative audiences, Bondi came prepared, confident, and measured in her delivery. As Bondi took her seat and began her testimony, the contrast between the two women was striking. AOC, young, impassioned, and fiery. Bondi, experienced, poised, and professional. Despite their differences, both had earned their place at the table. And at first, the hearing proceeded as expected, tense, but respectful. But then, things took a sharp, unexpected turn. As Pam Bondi began outlining examples of what she called selective outrage and media hypocrisy, she pointed to several incidents where she believed conservative voices were unfairly silenced or misrepresented in the press. She argued that the media had become increasingly partisan, weaponizing coverage to promote certain narratives while suppressing others. AOC, seated a few chairs away, began to show visible signs of irritation. She whispered to her aides. She smirked. Then, she rolled her eyes dramatically, a gesture caught clearly on the cameras broadcasting the hearing live across the country. Bondi continued her statement, undeterred, but as she emphasized that truth should never be sacrificed for political gain, AOC suddenly cut her off mid-sentence. "Excuse me," AOC said sharply, leaning forward into her microphone. Her tone was curt, her voice raised just enough to seize control of the room. Then came the line that would soon ignite a digital firestorm. "Sit down, girl." The insult was short, blunt, delivered with a smirk. The entire hearing room fell into a stunned silence. Lawmakers shifted in their seats. A few gasped, others looked around uncomfortably, and for a brief moment, no one moved. Even Bondi paused, startled not by the interruption, but by the sheer condescension of the remark. It wasn't just what AOC said, it was how she said it. The tone wasn't playful or joking. It wasn't clever political banter. It was dismissive, personal, and, according to many viewers, deeply unprofessional. And that's exactly how social media reacted. Within seconds, clips of the moment were circulating online. Conservative commentators condemned AOC's words as disrespectful and sexist. Liberal voices were split. Some defended her, others expressed disappointment. On Twitter, the hashtag #SitDownGirl began trending alongside hashtag Pam Bondi. TikTok users stitched the moment into reaction videos. Instagram Reels replayed the insult with dramatic music and freeze frames. Cable news picked it up that very hour, running headlines like, AOC's shocking outburst, sit down girl. Pam Bondi versus AOC, a culture clash in Congress. Online forums lit up with debates. Was it just a snarky comment? Or a symptom of a deeper issue in American politics, where disagreement too often turns into disrespect? Many women across the political aisle, including some who didn't support Bondi's politics, chimed in to say the phrase girl felt deliberately belittling. They shared stories of being called girl in meetings, courtrooms, boardrooms, not as a term of endearment, but as a way to undermine their presence and authority. One Twitter user, a lawyer from Chicago, wrote, "You don't call a former attorney general girl in a congressional hearing unless your goal is to minimize her worth." Another user added, AOC is fierce, but that wasn't fierce. That was petty. The backlash was swift, and it came from unexpected places. Even a few progressive pundits admitted the comment had crossed a line. While AOC's defenders argued she was simply expressing frustration in the heat of the moment, critics said it revealed a troubling lack of respect, especially toward women who don't share her views. But perhaps the most telling reaction came not from the internet, but from Pam Bondi herself. She didn't flinch. She didn't snap back. She didn't raise her voice. Instead, she responded with a calm but powerful statement, one that would go viral on its own. But that moment is a story in itself, and what she said next would leave even AOC silent. What followed next was not the response anyone expected. There was no shouting, no finger-pointing, no slamming fists or emotional outbursts. Pam Bondi didn't take the bait. Instead, she did something far more powerful. She smiled. In the face of a public insult that millions would have reacted to with anger, Bondi stayed perfectly composed. She paused, let the moment breathe. Then, she calmly leaned into her microphone, locked eyes with AOC, and delivered a statement that would ripple across the political world. Congresswoman, I'm not your girl. I'm a former attorney general, a lawyer, and a woman who's earned her seat at this table just like you have. If you're intimidated by opposing views, perhaps you're in the wrong room. Boom. It was as if time stood still. The hearing room fell into a deep silence. You could hear a pin drop. Even AOC, usually ready with a quick retort, stayed quiet. And then, a rare sound inside a congressional hearing, applause. From the public gallery behind Bondi, several people clapped. Not loud, not rowdy, just a few measured, respectful claps, but enough to send a message. Even some members of Congress looked around, clearly taken aback. There were no shouts of order, no gavel slams, just stunned silence, followed by a silent acknowledgement. Pam Bondi had just taken control of the moment. Her response wasn't just smart, it was surgical. She didn't insult back. She didn't question AOC's credentials. She didn't stoop to name-calling or personal jabs. She recentered the conversation on professionalism, mutual respect, and earned credibility. And the internet? It exploded. Within minutes, Bondi's response was clipped, captioned, and posted all over Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Political channels shared it. Influencers reacted to it. Conservative outlets praised it, of course, but even some liberal commentators admitted she handled that moment with class. Some users called it the most graceful political takedown of the year. Others described it as a masterclass in how to handle disrespect without losing your cool. One YouTube commentator posted a breakdown titled, "Why Pam Bondi's calm response destroyed AOC's outburst." It racked up hundreds of thousands of views in under 24 hours. Even people who didn't usually follow politics found themselves watching the clip. One tweet with over 2 million views read, "I don't even care about politics, but this is how a professional shuts down petty drama. Total queen energy." And let's be clear, this wasn't just about politics anymore. It became a conversation about respect in professional spaces, especially between women. People across the country, lawyers, executives, teachers, and students, began weighing in. Many women shared their own experiences of being called girl in meetings or public forums, and how those moments were meant to belittle or discredit them. Pam Bondi's response, they said, felt vindicating. Not just because she clapped back, but because she refused to be minimized. She didn't make it about victimhood. She didn't cry foul. She simply stood her ground and reminded everyone that titles don't make you powerful. How you carry yourself does. One political analyst said it best on live television. AOC brought heat, but Bondi brought something stronger, control. And that's why the moment belonged to her. In the days that followed, Bondi made a few brief media appearances. On one national news program, she was asked about her viral moment. She responded simply, "I didn't go in looking for a fight. I went in to speak on issues that matter. But when someone speaks to you like that, like you don't belong, you don't have to shout. Just remind them you do." Once again, her tone was calm, confident, professional. Meanwhile, AOC remained unusually quiet about the exchange. She didn't issue a follow-up statement. No tweets. No press rebuttals. Her silence spoke volumes. While her supporters tried to spin the moment as authentic or passionate, many felt she had crossed a line and simply didn't have a solid way to walk it back. And maybe that's the lesson here. In today's hyperpolarized, always online political world, it's easy to think that the loudest voice always wins. But sometimes, it's the quiet confidence that truly resonates. Pam Bondi's restraint reminded millions that you don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to insult to make a point. She walked into a hearing as a witness, got disrespected on a national stage, and walked out as the most talked-about person in the room. Her mic drop moment didn't just dominate the headlines. It sent a message loud and clear. If you want to lead, don't lower the bar. Raise the standard. And in that moment, whether you agreed with her politics or not, millions agreed. Pam Bondi stood tall. As expected, social media turned into a battleground. Within minutes of the congressional exchange, hashtags like #SitDownGirl, #PamBondi, #AOCClapback, and #CongressDrama began trending across multiple platforms. Twitter was ablaze. TikTok users created parody skits, reaction videos, and motivational edits featuring Pam Bondi's now iconic words. Instagram Reels cut together Bondi's mic drop moment with epic music. The internet had found its latest political flashpoint, and everyone had something to say. Lines were quickly drawn. Supporters of AOC rushed to her defense, insisting the remark had been misunderstood. Many called it nothing more than a sassy quip and argued that AOC was simply responding to the frustration of yet another conservative voice denying systemic media bias. One viral tweet read, "She said, 'Sit down, girl. Not you're worthless.' The outrage is performative. Men in Congress insult each other every day, and no one blinks." Others went further, accusing critics of holding AOC to a different standard because she's young, female, and progressive. Her defenders pointed to dozens of heated congressional moments where male lawmakers hurled insults with far less scrutiny. But on the other side of the spectrum, the backlash was fierce. Conservatives, moderates, and even some independent voices slammed AOC for what they described as a condescending, personal attack that crossed a professional line. To them, the phrase "sit down, girl" wasn't witty or harmless. It was a deliberate attempt to diminish another woman's voice based on political disagreement. Political strategist Jenna Ellis tweeted, "You don't call a former attorney general girl in a congressional hearing. You call her ma'am. Or better yet, listen to her argument." Bondi became an overnight icon among conservative circles. Commentators praised her restraint and professionalism, calling her a class act and the adult in the room. Her name began trending independently of AOC's. News outlets such as Fox News, Newsmax, and Daily Wire ran the clip repeatedly, hailing it as a turning point in how female leaders handle confrontation in politics. But what made the moment transcend the usual political theater was the fact that even some liberals and centrists admired Bondi's poise. She didn't lash out. She didn't resort to a social media rant. She didn't gloat. She stayed silent. And that silence spoke volumes. As the hours passed, millions of people shared the video. It was posted by popular YouTubers who rarely covered politics. TikTok creators used her quote as sound for bosswoman edits. One particular clip, featuring Bondi's calm response over a black and white slow-motion edit, amassed over 5 million views in under 24 hours. Podcasters across the ideological spectrum weighed in. On one major political podcast, the host said, Pam Bondi just taught a masterclass on how to handle conflict with grace. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't hit below the belt. She just stood firm. And somehow, that was louder than anything else in that room. Memes flooded in. Some showed a split image, AOC yelling, and Bondi smiling calmly beneath the caption, Grace under pressure versus pressure without grace. Others rewrote her quote onto mock motivational posters. One TikTok creator simply wrote, When someone calls you girl in a room full of powerful men, be a Pam Bondi. Celebrities and influencers even got involved. An award-winning actress tweeted, Respect to Pam Bondi. I may not agree with her politics, but I respect her professionalism. That moment hit hard. Yet, through all the noise, Bondi remained noticeably quiet. No tweets, no press tour, no clickbait interviews. Until the following day, when she appeared briefly on Fox News for a measured follow-up. Wearing a simple navy blazer and a calm smile, she addressed the viral moment with a single, powerful statement. I won't attack Representative Ocasio-Cortez personally. I believe in debate, not insults. But I'll always stand up when someone tries to diminish women with condescending language, no matter where it comes from. She didn't gloat. She didn't play victim. She didn't even name AOC again. Instead, she elevated the conversation to something bigger, a statement on how women in leadership should be treated, regardless of political party. That single quote was clipped and played across networks, shared in newsletters, quoted in op-eds. Commentators noted how Bondi had managed to turn what could have been a petty feud into a teachable moment about class, composure, and standing tall under fire. And while AOC chose not to respond publicly to Bondi's quote, many observers saw that as a sign that even she may have realized she misjudged the room. The incident sparked broader conversations across America, on podcasts, morning shows, and social media forums. People debated everything from civility in politics to gendered language, to how public officials should conduct themselves when disagreeing. And perhaps that was the most remarkable part of it all. What began as a dismissive, offhand insult, "Sit down, girl," evolved into a national conversation about respect, professionalism, and the power of restraint. Pam Bondi didn't win that moment because she shouted louder. She won because she didn't need to. In a world where chaos often steals the spotlight, her quiet confidence stole the show. So why did this moment strike such a nerve with millions of Americans? Because it wasn't just a verbal exchange between two high-profile women in a congressional hearing. It wasn't just about a sharp remark or a poised comeback. It was about something much deeper. It touched on the core tensions shaping American society today, the collapse of civility, the gender double standards we still wrestle with, and the cultural divide between political ideologies that seems to grow wider by the day. This wasn't just AOC versus Pam Bondi. This was two Americas colliding in real time. Let's break it down. Small blue diamond: respect in politics. Are we losing it? For decades, Congress has been home to fierce debates, sharp arguments, and political posturing. But over the years, what once passed for spirited discourse has increasingly devolved into snark, sarcasm, and personal attacks, especially when the cameras are rolling. The sit-down, girl moment was a perfect example of that shift. To AOC's supporters, it was just sass, a verbal jab that matched the tone of the times. But to many others, especially women professionals, it felt like something more corrosive, a normalization of disrespect. Pam Bondi's refusal to engage on those terms sent a message loud and clear. You can challenge me. You can disagree with me. But you don't get to diminish me. In an era where every insult gets a standing ovation from someone, Bondi's calm dignity stood out like a lighthouse in a storm. And for many viewers, regardless of political leanings, that was refreshing. Small blue diamond: the double standard. Would this fly if a man said it? Another reason this moment resonated so deeply was the uncomfortable question it raised. If a male congressman had said, "Sit down, girl," to a woman testifying, would we be okay with it? The likely answer? Absolutely not. It would have sparked a firestorm. There would have been demands for apologies, calls for censure, and media panels dissecting the comment for days. And yet, because the remark came from a woman, especially one as media-savvy and polarizing as AOC. Some were quick to dismiss it as harmless. But millions saw the irony. The same people who often call out sexism and tone policing seemed willing to look the other way when the roles were reversed. And that didn't sit right with a lot of Americans, especially professional women who faced subtle belittlement in boardrooms, courtrooms, and committee hearings their entire careers. Pam Bondi's composed response gave voice to that frustration, not with fire, but with firmness. Small Blue Diamond, two Americas in one room. Firebrand versus legal warrior. This hearing wasn't just a policy discussion. It became a symbolic battlefield between two wildly different archetypes. AOC, young, progressive, defiant. Beloved by the left for her boldness, criticized by the right for her brashness. Pam Bondi, conservative, polished, seasoned. Trusted by the right for her loyalty and legal mind, often dismissed by the left as a Trump ally. Their exchange crystallized what so many Americans feel. We're not just divided by policies. We're divided by tone, style, and approach. For many, AOC's fire is inspiring. She speaks bluntly and unapologetically. But for others, that same fire burns too hot, crossing lines and alienating those on the other side. Pam Bondi, by contrast, represented an old-school approach. Stay calm. Stick to the facts. Don't let them see you sweat. And when those two styles collided, people didn't just watch, they picked sides. Small Blue Diamond, a moment that felt real. In a media landscape full of staged soundbites and rehearsed speeches, this confrontation felt different. Raw, spontaneous, real. There were no filters, no teleprompters, just two women, on national TV, facing off in the heat of political battle. And that authenticity, even in conflict, is what made it so compelling. It was a reminder that behind every policy debate are real personalities, real egos, and real stakes. Small Blue Diamond, Bondi's quiet victory. In the end, Pam Bondi didn't just defend herself. She made a quiet but powerful statement for every woman who's ever been talked down to, belittled, or dismissed as just a girl. She didn't need to yell. She didn't clap back on Twitter. She didn't run to the cameras with outrage. She stood her ground, and the world watched her do it. That's why this wasn't just a viral clip. It was a rare moment of cross-party respect, in a town where respect is almost extinct. Even some AOC supporters admitted the insult may have crossed a line. And while AOC didn't apologize, she didn't double down either. A subtle sign that even she may have realized she went one step too far. Small Blue Diamond, final thoughts. In a world where politics, media, and personality collide daily on the biggest stage of all, the internet, this moment became more than just a trending clip. It was a mirror, a reflection of where we are as a country, divided, yes, but also hungry for civility, for leadership that doesn't shout us down, and for public figures who can disagree without demeaning. Whether you're Team AOC or Team Bondi, one thing is clear. Moments like this matter, because they remind us how powerful words can be and how much more powerful it is when we use them wisely. Now it's your turn. Speaking head, whose side are you on, AOC or Bondi? Was this a petty spat or a deeper issue about professionalism and respect? Speech balloon, drop your thoughts in the comments. Thumbs up, like, repeat button, share, and push pin subscribe for more real talk stories that cut through the noise. Because this is more than politics. It's the story of how we show up, how we speak, and how we stand. Let's keep the conversation going.